Well, things just got really bad. Just when you think that nothing can get worse, it does. Take you out to the wood pile. That's a joke. One of my subscribers says, anytime I want to do a rant video, I take you out to the wood pile. And it's true, but a lot of times I'm talking about the wood pile. I've made videos in the past about the wood stove, firewood, and I've made so many videos that I can't even remember all the things that they're trying to get rid of and trying to ban. I live a very minimalistic life. We don't use any electricity off the grid, so that really minimizes how much carbon I'm putting into the air. I use the generator occasionally, and we were thinking about this today. I spent $80 in gas for the last month. It's $3 a gallon, so I filled up the truck and I filled up 2 5-gallon jugs of gasoline. My entire expense for electric and vehicle is $80. Now, most people would probably spend $80 easily just on their electric bill. So I figured out how to minimize my impact on the environment. Well, then they want to ban wood stoves. They said that wood stoves cause asthma. So the EPA has done everything they can, I think, since, again, all this information, I've forgotten everything that they want to get rid of. So I think it was 2015, but don't quote me. EPA cracked down on wood stoves, and they just about put wood stoves out of business that year. They had to reduce the emissions from the wood stove down to so many parts per million. Now, what you would think is they wanted to reduce the carbon emissions from the wood stove, but they didn't. They just wanted to reduce the particulates because it causes asthma. So they say. No evidence that I can find. Of course, I'm not a scientist or anything, but I really haven't found much evidence that it does cause asthma. I think that asthma is caused by a lot of different reasons. I had asthma, or have asthma, however you want to look at it, and I started eating a carnivorous diet. It reduced the inflammation, and I don't have asthma anymore. So just throw it out there. Oh yeah, the children have asthma, you're right. I mean, how many people back in the day burned wood stoves and asthma wasn't really a problem? I mean, did they have inhalers back in the 1800s and early 1900s? Maybe, but I doubt it. So either we've become a bunch of wimps or it's not true. So they reduced the particulates that came out of it, made the wood stoves 85% efficient. Now, like I said, most of the wood stove companies went out of business, but some of them were able to survive, and they put reburners into the wood stoves. And our wood stove is 2 years old. It has air tubes in it, burns all the smoke. So you see very little, well, usually you don't see any smoke coming out of the chimney, because the reburners are burning that smoke. So it's, like I said, 85% efficient, but it's already obsolete, because now, I guess, you know, they gotta be 95% efficient. Eventually they'll have to get down to 100% efficient, where no smoke is coming out of it. And I think they're getting there. It's pretty close. They might have to use what's called a catalytic converter, which uses precious metals in the wood stove, and get away from the air tubes completely. I think that's what they're gonna have to do. They've already done the catalytic converters. The problem is those are so dang expensive, and you gotta replace those catalytic converters. I know when I wanted to buy one, I wasn't even allowed to buy it and install it myself. If I bought it, they had to come out and install it for me. And then there was a maintenance program that I had to buy into. So we ended up buying a used one. It wasn't used, it was used twice. The guy didn't like it, it was too small for his garage, so he sold it to us. Now we have 15 years of firewood, and just as a side note, it takes about 3 of my truckloads. I got a 6-foot bed to make a cord of wood. Now my house is so small that I don't use any more than 1 cord of wood per year. I got 15 years. People are gonna say, no, that's gonna rot. It's not gonna rot. I'm gonna keep it covered. I've explained all this in the past. It's oak, it'll do fine. I explained the stories that there was wood down there in the woods since the 90s. And I used it, it was fine. So there's no reason to comment in the comment section that that's not gonna last. It's gonna last. I do need to get it covered, I do agree with that. And I'm going to buy tarps. I'm just not in a hurry to buy them just yet. Now I've gotten all this free. You can go on Facebook Marketplace, pick it up from people who are cutting down trees in their yard, and they don't wanna pay the tree trimmers to send it out. So they just put it in Facebook Marketplace. I have an app that's called Free Stuff. You go to the App Store, download it. I've checked, it's still there, and it sends out notifications. Every time somebody's got firewood, I get a notification. I think I'm gonna get some more firewood. As you can see, my back wall has diminished. I wanna make sure that I keep fully stocked of firewood. In case something ever happened, I might be able to actually trade it. Now, the key to using these efficient wood stoves is you get the moisture content down to 20%. So it's not green, it's dry firewood. And so you let the oak sit around for about 2 years and it's dry. You get a moisture tester, I've showed that before. Well, then the environmentalist wanted the EPA to ban wood stoves because of carbon emissions. But there's a problem with that. EPA, I think, is smart enough to realize that if they try to ban it on carbon emissions, people are going to say, no, 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 firewood, it's carbon neutral because it absorbs all the carbon through its life and then releases the carbon when it dies. So it lays on the ground and releases the carbon. And then nutri grows and reabsorbs all that carbon. So it's just a cycle of life. So it's carbon neutral. It's the only environmentally friendly heat source that we have. I've been advocating that folks get a wood stove. The problem is every time I do that, people say, I'm not buying one of those EPA wood stoves. I'm going to go out and buy one of those big polluters, or they're going to build their own. This is where things get to be a little hairy, is when you go to a municipality and you're pumping out tons of smoke and the neighbor calls and says, yeah, my neighbor John's pumping out all this wood smoke. Local municipalities start banning the wood stoves, and when you light one up and you're pumping out all that smoke, they're going to fine you for having a wood stove. I think part of the problem is I'm free, I'm going to do whatever I want, but they don't realize that your freedom ends at someone else's nose. Then we move into other appliances. A while back, the administration wanted to ban gas stoves because they said the same thing. Asthma causes asthma. Your children are going to get asthma from gas stoves. Well, again, everybody has been raised on gas stoves. Nobody's got asthma from gas stoves, but all of a sudden it creates asthma from gas stoves. Now, I did read one report that said the study that they used to prove that it causes asthma was done in the 70s. Now, outdated science. The thing is last year, 2 years ago, might have been 2 years ago, I reported that states were already banning gas stoves. I think it was New York, California. Again, it's been a long time since I've had to discuss this. So it was just a matter of time before the federal government got involved. Well, apparently people made such a stink about it that federal government decided, okay, we're not going to ban it. But, you know, hold on. That doesn't matter because states are still going to do it. Right after the federal government said they weren't going to do it, more states got on board and started banning gas stoves. So what they're doing, you can't put them into new construction homes. I should mention that the senator from Maine put into the spending bill, the big one, that she would vote on it if this was in there, that wood is carbon neutral. So now it's a law that wood is carbon neutral. But that doesn't stop the EPA from putting restrictions on wood stoves. So the only thing this does is continuously increases the price of wood stoves, so you can't afford to buy wood stoves, which is one of the reasons why we bought one used. It was $800, $600, where normally if you go to Home Depot, you can buy one similar to mine at Home Depot. I think they were $2,300, something like that, $2,400. So it's almost advantageous to look on Facebook Marketplace to see if you can find used wood stoves. But if you do look for one, try to find one with those reburners, because those are really nice. They actually produce more heat because it's burning off the smoke. You waste a lot of energy when you throw that smoke out in the air. You can use that smoke and it produces heat. It reduces the amount of firewood you need. 1954 Shadow sent me an article this morning. He said, I knew it was coming, and I did too. So Minnesota has decided that they're just going to ban natural gas. And so there's new legislation, which you know it's going to pass. When it's in Minnesota, it's going to pass, that says all new construction homes cannot have natural gas, has to be electric. So what this will do is it's going to drive up the cost of natural gas. Natural gas companies still have to pay their employees. You still got the shipping costs, or the transportation costs, or the infrastructure costs. You got all that cost. And when you're reducing a number of customers you have, the customers you got are going to have to pay a higher price. So what this will do, it will drive everybody into giving up natural gas. It's the whole idea. They're using the markets against us. When I took economics, this is the key to economics, is anytime government interferes, it violates the supply and demand process. Anytime they tax something, it violates the supply and demand. So 1954 Shadow left a comment in the email that he sent me with the link, and he says a friend of his has enough battery bank to run his furnace fan if the electric goes out. That way he can run his natural gas. And he says, so what are you going to do when they ban natural gas? I mean, he knew this was coming. I did too. 1954 Shadow says, I'm going to get a wood stove. And I think that's the best option. It's the one thing I think they can ban it. Don't get me wrong. At least municipalities can ban it. But it's the one thing that's going to be the most difficult to ban, because they're not going to be able to convince people that this is a carbon issue. That's why they haven't done it yet. Also, there's a law against banning it for carbon issues, as long as we're keeping the smoke from coming out of the chimney. Now, I know there's going to be people who say, oh, there you go, you're a shill for the government. I'm not a shill for the government. I'm trying to figure out how to heat my home at a relatively low cost. If I was a shill for the government, I would say just go to electric. That's what they want us to do anyways. I'm trying to figure out how to get away from government by using the government against themselves. Now, the biggest problem is a lot of people don't have the ability to get firewood. As a matter of fact, 1954 Shadow said, I guess I'm gonna have to buy it. Now, you can buy oak firewood for about $300 a cord. I bought a cord, I think it was $275, but that was 2 years ago. Firewood prices have went up. All that free firewood is all around you if you get on Facebook Marketplace. So how do you get that firewood if you don't have a truck? Well, I've said this before, and I got a lot of flack for it. U-Haul, you can get those pickup trucks from U-Haul. Now, U-Haul says, so they say, that you can't carry firewood in their trucks. The only thing I can find about U-Haul is they don't want you transporting firewood because you could bring bug larvae along with you. So if you're moving from Missouri to Maine, any of those bugs that you have in your firewood could be transferred to Maine, and it could kill the trees in Maine. When I was a nomad, this was a big thing. Leave your firewood behind. Don't take it from one national forest to another. But I can't find too much that says you can't transport firewood in U-Haul. That they may, I don't know, but at least it's an option. If you keep the truck clean and you don't show any evidence that you've beat it up with firewood, you know, stack it in there gently. You don't want to make a scene so when you return it, they're like, oh, you carried firewood. Make sure it's clean. Put a tarp down and then lay your firewood down. I mean, I treat my truck pretty rough. I just throw the firewood in there. But if I was using U-Haul, I'd set it in there gently. And so you might be able to get your free firewood for a little bit of expense. You may have to weigh the cost to see if it's cheaper to buy firewood or if it is to rent a U-Haul truck. That being said, Carolyn says, well, all you got to do is go on Facebook Marketplace. There are guys all the time offering to allow you to use their truck. Now, you can't drive it. They'll drive it for you. Of course, they'll charge you. They may have a trailer and a truck, and you can go load up firewood in their truck, bring it back to your house. It takes 2 loads of firewood in a regular full-size pickup truck to make a cord of wood. So that's something that you want to keep in mind, that if you hire someone, you're gonna have to make 2 trips to get 1 cord. If you're buying a cord for $300 and the guy's charging $150 per trip, it might be just easier to buy the firewood. So if you'll click this up next box, take you to a video where I was talking about aliens. So I hope I can inspire you. Get your own wood stove so you can live your dreams. Thanks for watching.